Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of October 25th to the October 25th to the 31st. And I just want to say happy Halloween to everyone out there, especially when this video will more than likely come up on Saturday. Hope you guys have a safe Halloween though, whether you are trick-or-treating or whether you're going out to say like a Halloween party or anything like that. Just be safe out there and all that stuff. I probably would recommend you wear a mask, especially with, the whole COVID-19 situation going on and that stuff. But just make sure to have a wonderful but safe Halloween this year and all. Anyway, we got basically 4 stories to cover this week though, including one with a comment that Phil Spencer has recently made in regards of what he wants to do with the Xbox, especially ranging from E-rated games to single-player games. We have information on why Cyberpunk 2077 got delayed again, though, and that has raised some questions about what's going on with that game, to be exact. We also got ironically, a very surprising Nintendo Direct that happened, which revealed a lot of information, or shall we say, revealed a lot of games that are coming out, including the demo for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity though, and surprisingly 2 games that are coming to the Nintendo Switch. But the way they are coming to the Switch though is, to some degree, based on how you want to look at it though, has considered to be controversial to some folks, and that has to do with streaming these games, and those are Hitman and Control though. And last but not least though, as some of you are aware, the demo for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is now out, and I want to give my thoughts on it based on the demo that I played so far, or at least based on my time with it though. But before we get started though, I do want to do a quick rundown on what I'd like to view as the quick My 2 Cent part. Stories that kind of caught my attention, but basically I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details or anything like that. The first one we don't talk about is that apparently it seems as though the Switch version of Apex Legends, unfortunately, it looks like that game is going to be delayed and will probably be released sometime in 2021, which is unfortunate though, especially for those who are looking forward to playing the game on the Nintendo Switch, all that stuff. Supposedly it's still coming out to PC this year, but it looks like Switch owners are going to have to wait. We also have a report from the Hollywood Reporter that apparently that Netflix is working on a live-action version of another video game adaptation based off of the Assassin's Creed series though, which is kind of interesting because a lot of their adaptations of video games have seemed to be doing pretty well. Castlevania has done very well. The Witcher, I still gotta watch more of those episodes, have done very well though. And just recently I finished Dragon Dogma, which I'll get a review, try to get my thoughts on that one soon. And now we're learning about this one as well, with the Assassin's Creed. We'll see how this one does though. Maybe it will do better than say what it did when the movie came out in the movie theaters though, which I saw in theaters, and I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of people would make it sound like it is though, but it still underperformed at the box office, mostly because one, you had basically the whole, basically it came out around the same time that Rogue One came out though. Plus, I think the whole, you see this movie, you pre-order tickets to get these bonuses, I think Ubisoft tried to pull, which seemed kind of stupid in my opinion, but we'll see how the live-action version of Assassin's Creed goes. Maybe this one will be as successful as The Witcher, which seems to have done pretty well for itself, the live-action version based off the video game and the book and all that stuff. We also learned that data miners have found out that apparently if you're playing the new upcoming Kingdom Hearts game, you could get sort of banned of some sort. I don't know the whole details, but apparently using certain words will get you banned from that game, which okay, it just seems a little bit weird that they are doing that, but it is what it is. If you want to read the articles itself, again, links will be in the description. You could check it out though. We also learned that it looks like we'll be seeing more of the Legends of Heroes Trial of Cold Steel games will be coming over to the Nintendo Switch. It seems as though the first and second one are sort of in the works, and supposedly will be out in Japan. No word on a release date for those, but given how the third one has recently came over to the Nintendo Switch over here, and supposedly the fourth one will be out next year as well, I would say odds are probably good that we could see this one come over to the Nintendo Switch. I mean, come over here to the West, more than, say, Persona 5 Scramble, which is right now no word of whether that game will ever make it to the West or not. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. It will be disappointed, but either way, it looks like we're getting more Trial of Cold Steel games to the Nintendo Switch. We also learned that apparently basically suggests that we might be getting a Switch version of Crash Bandicoot 4. When that game was announced, there was no mention of a Switch version, but supposedly it is possible we could see it come to the Nintendo Switch based on supposedly what data miners have found it all. And considering how well Insane Trilogy did on the Nintendo Switch, I would say there's a good chance we could see Crash Bandicoot 4. Whether that happens or not, who knows? Same thing with it's sort of similar to the whole situation with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 as well, which I still think it's odd that they're not, Activision Blizzard is not bringing the games over to Switch right away, but it is what it is, though. We also learned that there is more rumors about the Switch Pro or Switch 2, that supposedly reports are coming out that it will have a new mini LED mini LED screen, though replacing the current screen that's on the Nintendo Switch right now. Obviously, this is a rumor at the moment, though, so we can't really hear any official confirmation. We'll see what happens next year. Maybe we'll hear something about a Switch Pro or Switch 2 and all that stuff, but right now, this is the newest rumor out there. And in the non-gaming one, to be exact, we've learned that apparently a reboot of Tiny Toons Adventure is happening, though, and it looks like it's going to be coming to HBO Max. So first we learned Animaniacs is coming back and going on Hulu. Now Tiny Toon Adventures, or I think it's now called Tiny Toons University, which is pretty amazing that Steven Spielberg is bringing this one back as well. I mean, given that this one's coming back and the Animaniacs, all I have to say is Steven Spielberg, bring back Freakazoid, okay? Damn it, bring that back too, for crying out loud. But either way, it's Tiny Toons reboot is happening. It's going to be on HBO Max, at least for now. We'll see if it goes on any other streaming service, but for the moment, it's going to be on HBO Max. Okay, with all the quick Mike You Said part now done, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with Xbox, mainly Phil Spencer, though. Now I'm sure most Xbox fans know about, or Xbox console owners have heard of Phil Spencer and all that stuff. He's the one that, in my view, kind of turned the ship around with the Xbox One when it was in a really bad place. And while the Xbox One certainly didn't overtake the PS4, though, he certainly put it in a better spot than it was when it originally came out, and I have to give credit to him for doing that and all that stuff. And so now he's going to be the one in charge when basically the Xbox X and Series S comes out, and we'll see how well those consoles do when those launch, I believe, on November 10th. Well, recently Phil Spencer has made some comments, though, in regards of the future for the Xbox One, particularly regarding E-rated games and basically single-player games. In an article from Game Radar, link will be in the description, though the article reads, quote, "In a recent interview, Xbox boss Phil Spencer has commented on the Xbox upcoming lineup of games and what might benefit from. The interview comes from a Game Radar, an interview he did to Game Reactor earlier today. When asked if he focused on a certain amount of games being single player or multiplayer for Xbox portfolio, Spencer replies with, "If anything, I like to see more single-player games from our first parties, just because that over time we kind of grown organically to be more multiplayer-driven as an organization." Elsewhere, Spencer commented on what might be missing from the Xbox admittedly broad spectrum of games, including under the Game Pass umbrella. If we look at what people are playing on Xbox, what Game Pass subscribers are playing, I think what is missing from our portfolio is casual content with a broad appeal, he said. E-rated content to use as to use an ESRB rating, it's not the strength for us. We obviously have Minecraft, we have some other franchise, but when I think about expanding the creative platter that our team has, I think that is critically important. Spencer also continues to be a big believer in getting as many people playing games as possible. I believe great games should be able to be played by as many people as possible, the Xbox boss says. He then goes on to talk about the Cameras, Camaradierie, apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly, that you and I might feel while playing a Destiny Striker together, and praise the fact that games can cross political lines, geographical lines, social economic lines, and religious lines. Whether you agree with him or not on that, that's your call on all that stuff. But anyway, the comments that he mentioned about in terms of the E-rated and single-player games, that's interesting that he brings that up, because I remember hearing how he made a comment about, single player games are dead and all that stuff, and that's the same thing with the EA's executive, all that stuff said that before. I think one of the EA's executives, though, which I would say that is kind of, which if true, I would say that's kind of ridiculous, especially when you look at games like Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Fire Emblem, Luigi's Mansion 3, Neo, Nier Automata, God of War, for that matter, or even Resident Evil 7 to be exact, or Resident Evil, the remake of Resident Evil 2 and 3. I mean, these are single player games and they continue to sell very well. Hell, Breath of the Wild continues to sell very well on the NPD charts, and that's a single-player game, for crying out loud. So to hear Phil Spencer talking about that he wants to see more single-player games on the Xbox is definitely encouraging, and I think that is definitely a good thing. I'm not saying you can't have your free-to-play or battle royale or multiplayer only or co-op only games out there, but you also gotta have single-player games too, because I mean, let's be honest, not all of us are going to be playing games 24/7. Not all of us have the time to invest in a free-to-play or a multiplayer only or a battle royale type of a game. Some of us just want to sit down, just enjoy a game for ourselves and all that stuff. And it's nice to hear that he talks about bringing more single-player games to the Xbox family, whether it's the Xbox Series S or X or Game Pass to be exact. And I do hope to see some of the studios that they have acquired or the studios that they have push out more single-player content for, the Xbox brand and all that stuff. As far as talking about bringing over like more E-rated games, I can understand that to a certain degree, though. While I'm not saying video games are a kids-only product, I mean, that argument is dead. Let's be honest. Not saying that there are any games out there for families or kids to enjoy, but to make the claim that it's only a kids-only product is kind of ridiculous, though. But anyway, while I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having T-rated or M-rated games on your platform, you gotta have different varieties, though. I don't think there's anything wrong with having E-rated games, and I really think that if they want to broaden their audience and bring more people in, having some E-rated games, some casual games here and there, it's definitely nice. You can still have your T-rated and M-rated, don't get me wrong, those should still be there, but having those E-rated games do help. Maybe doing, like, say, another Banjo-Kazooie game, like a Banjo-Kazooie 3. I think a lot of people would like to see that. Have, like, that as an E-rated game, or a game and so forth. So there are ways Phil Spencer and Microsoft can approach in terms of bringing in E-rated games, bringing those kind of casual games and all that stuff. I mean, I'm the kind of gamer that will, on one hand, play something like Luigi's Mansion 3, which is an E-rated game. Enjoy that one. It's fun, it's silly, and it's enjoyable and all that stuff. But at the same time, I'm also someone who can enjoy playing something like Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, a hard, an M-rated game known for its violence, language, nudity, sex, and all that stuff. So yes, having different varieties of games are definitely important, and having E-rated games on there are definitely important if you want to bring in more and more people and bring in a bigger audience and all that stuff. So overall, I have to say, I'm glad Phil Spencer is paying attention to terms of bringing in more single-player games. I do think it's important to bring those type of games in because, let's be honest, not everyone has the luxury or the time to invest in a free-to-play or multiplayer-only game. And I definitely don't disagree in terms of bringing in more E-rated games. I mean, there are E-rated games that could appeal to a lot of people that still enjoy it. I mean, Mario Odyssey is a good example. That's an E-rated game, yet people enjoy playing those type of games, whether you're young or old. So bringing those type of games are still important, though. Like I said, doesn't mean you can't have your T-rated games or M-rated games, but having E-rated games definitely doesn't hurt either. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to part 2. And this one has to do with, unfortunately, another delay in regards of Cyberpunk 2077. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part two of our My 2 Cent video for this week. I almost said video review by mistake. And for this one, I want to be talking about the situation in regards of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, that has been a long-awaited game, and a lot of people have been waiting to play CD Projekt Red's newest game that they have been working on. However, the game has been, let's just say, been hit with multiple delays many times, though. Originally, the title was supposed to come out in April this year, but that got pushed back to September. Some of it had to do with the issue of, say, with the whole situation with the coronavirus, which is understandable to a certain degree. And then from September, then it got pushed back to November when there were reports of it having a hard time run on the PS4, or the base PS4 and the base Xbox One. And then of course we learned how they now decided to push for crunch after they said that they would not they were not going to do crunch and anything like that. And they certainly got some backlash because of that, though. And now it appears as though basically the original, I think November 12th or November 10th release date, though, has now pushed it now into basically December, though. In an article first posted on GameSpot, though, it reads that, quote, Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed by another 3 weeks. Its new release date is set for December 10th. Following numerous previous delays, it has been set for launch on November 19th. Apologize for that. I thought it said it was 12th, but that's different. But according to a statement from studio executive, from the studio's executives, though, shipping the game on the PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, and PC along next-gen versions for Xbox Series SX, PS5 Stadia have been challenging, especially under work-from-home conditions. Since Cyberpunk 2077 evolved towards almost being a next-gen title, somewhere along the way, we wanted to make sure everything worked well and every version runs smoothly, the statement said. We are aware that it might seem unrealistic when someone says that 21 days can make any difference in such a massive and complex game, but they really do. But according to they posted the statement, though, on their Twitter account, and it says, and according to their statement, quote, is that, quote, today we've decided to move the release date of Cyberpunk 2077 by 21 days. The new release date is December 10th. Most likely there are many emotions and questions in your head, so first and foremost, please accept our humble apology. The biggest challenge for us right now is shipping the game on current gen, next gen, and PC at the same time, which requires us to prepare a test of 9 versions of it, Xbox One and X capability on Xbox Series S and X, PS4 Pro capability on PS5, PC, and Stadia, while working from home. Since Cyberpunk 2077 evolved towards almost being a next-gen title, I may repeat this part, somewhere along the way, we need to make sure everything worked well and every version runs smoothly. We are aware that it might seem unrealistic when someone says that 21 days can make a difference in such a massive and complex games, but they really do. Some of you may be wondering why these words mean in light of us saying we achieved gold master some time ago. Past certification or going gold means that the game is ready, can be complete, and has all the content in it, but it doesn't mean we stop working on it and raise the quality bar. On the contrary, this is the time where many improvements are being made, which will be distributed via a day zero patch. This is the time this is the time period we undercalculated. We feel we have an amazing game in our hands and are willing to make every decision, even the hardest one, if it ultimately leads you to getting a video game you fall in love with, though. As far as the reaction, though, not everyone seems to be... Not everybody, at least in the industry and fans, seem to be... Some have different views on it, though. It says... Cyberpunk gets delayed into December. Everyone who delays their game to December to not complete with Cyberpunk, and it shows sort of like a GIF though. But let's just say not everybody is sort of happy with this announcement, even going as far as making death threats, and that's where it really kind of they had to address this problem right away though. Afterwards, one of the senior designers took to Twitter in the aftermath of the delay, announcing to plead with fans to exercise some basic human decency, but not continue to send the Polish studio death threats. One of the developers said, "I want to address one thing in regards of Cyberpunk game delay. I understand you're feeling anger, disappointment, and want to voice your opinion about it. However, sending death threats to the developers is absolutely unacceptable and just wrong. We are people just like you. There have been..." And Jason Schreier has kind of chimed in on this, though, to some degree about the whole delay, though, basically saying, quote, "Cyberpunk 2077 getting a 3-week delay is unusual, but probably won't change much for the developers, many of whom were going to be crunched into December anyway for a post-launch patch, but I sure do hope reality is becoming clearer to those who try to deny it." He also continues by saying, "Look, a CPR developer told me recently that they just clocked a 100-hour work week. Another former developer just told me that they saw some of their friends that are there and that they look physically ill. So kind of GTFO with the but I work long hours too response though." And some of the death threat comments, while the ones that this person showed isn't like, it's still a death threat, but maybe not outrageous though. But I still think it does sound outrageous though in any way when you look at it though. It says, quote, "I know where you live, bro. Release the game or you're finished. Release Cyberpunk or you or your family will be persecuted. And I will burn you alive if you don't release the game." So it really is basically some of this is just, yeah, it is bad though. I mean, in regards to the delay though, I would say that it makes me worried about this game, to be exact, that given what they are going through with the delay. I mean, I can understand with the COVID-19, but when you hear stories about what Jason Schreier said in regards of the whole crunch hours and all that stuff, and all this, it really starts raising questions about, is this game really in a good state or anything like that? Did they really shoot themselves in the foot with this in any way? I mean, would it have been better to just make it just a next-gen title instead, rather than trying to make an effort to release it on the PS4 or Xbox or the Xbox One and all that stuff? So I would say it's really hurting CD Projekt Red's reputation, which is known to do some pretty good pro-consumer stuff and all that stuff. And if we hear this game gets delayed from its December release date, then that's really not going to sit well with a lot of folks. Not to mention, if it turns out as into another Too Human situation where that game got delayed for so long, eventually came out, I think, on the Xbox, and, well, the end result wasn't exactly that great, to be exact. As for the whole death threat, though, this is an area where I will have to draw the line right here. Look, I agree, consumers have a right to be angry at CD Projekt Red. They've really mishandled this situation. I don't disagree with that. But to make death threats just because the game is not going to come out in time and all that stuff, that's where I would have to draw the line and all that stuff. I mean, that is deplorable and downright unacceptable over a video game, for crying out loud, okay? Look, you have a right to be angry at CD Projekt Red. CD Projekt Red, I think, really, pardon my language, fucked up big time on this, okay? I really think they miscalculated a lot of things. But to make death threats just because the game's not going to come out on November 19th, yeah, that's going way, way too far. And shame on those who are making the death threats and all that stuff. And even though I am disappointed with the way CD Projekt Red has handled this, I will outright condemn those kind of death threats, to be exact, though, okay? For those who make those death threats are giving gamers a bad name when you make comments like that, all right? Don't get me wrong, I do believe CD Projekt Red deserves some of the backlash for the way they've handled Cyberpunk 2077 in regards to the delays and all, but I will say the death threats are deplorable and downright unacceptable. So overall, my takeaway is, yeah, I think to some degree CD Projekt Red did shoot themselves in the foot in terms of the development of Cyberpunk 2077, though. Although I will admit some of it, I will say, like, COVID-19 really has thrown a wrench at a lot of things, though. I mean, even Far Cry 6 is being delayed, to be exact. But despite that, though, I will also downright condemn those who have made the death threats. That is deplorable and downright, to developers. That is deplorable and downright unacceptable, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3. And this one, I'm going to be talking about the interesting and surprise Nintendo Direct that happened, or the Direct Mini that Nintendo kind of threw this week at us, though. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our third part of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at a, surprise that Nintendo pulled for us, though. They gave us a brand new Nintendo Direct Mini that a lot of people didn't expect coming, though, and they really made some interesting announcements on this, with 2 games, to be exact, that I could see being somewhat controversial, at least the way this is being approached, though. So what did they announce at this Nintendo Direct Mini that they pointed out? Well, based on what I've read and not to mention watched, though, when this announcement came out, though, we first saw Bravely Default 2, which we basically got a 4-minute rundown on a lot of the gameplay and mechanics and all that stuff, and we finally have, supposedly, assuming this launch date holds, though, we are looking at a release date of February 26, 2021, close to around the time of my birthday and all that stuff, though. I was February 11th, though, so it's nice that we are finally have a release date. Hopefully that release date holds, though. Would have liked to see this game come out this year, but it is what it is, though. We're obviously going to get Bravely Default 2 on February 26th, though. Hopefully they'll also port over, the first Bravely Default and maybe Bravely Second, maybe remake those games. I mean, after all, Link's Awakening got remade for the Nintendo Switch. I can't see how they can't remake Bravely Default 1 and Bravely Second or anything like that. We also saw another entry into the Story of Seasons, called Story of Seasons Pioneer of Olive Town, which is set to come out on March 23rd, 2021, though. We also have what looks like, you build a colony and all that stuff, a sim-like game called The Aftermath, which takes place sort of in a post-apocalyptic environment, though, and that has a spring 2021 release date. We also saw footage which, assuming this is correct, though, I don't know if it's 100% correct or anything like that, though. We've had Immortal Phoenix Rising. Now, I tried the demo out based off the Stadia version, though, and I think the game does show promise. It does have a Breath of the Wild vibe to it to a certain degree, but being this is Ubisoft, I'm a little worried about this and all that stuff. We do have a release date coming out December 3rd, which I think that's when the other versions come out, though. One thing I do want to point out about the version that they showed on the Nintendo Direct is that it seems as though there was a little bit of a frame rate issue, mostly when there was a certain amount of enemies on the screen. Now, I don't know if this is basically, not the final version or anything like that. It's possible there may be some areas they have to iron out. People pointed this out when Assassin's Creed 3 Remaster was announced for the Nintendo Switch, and when the game finally showed up on the Nintendo Switch, it looked like they ironed out certain areas of the game and all that stuff. So it is possible that might be the case. But in either way, I'm keeping an eye out for Immortal Phoenix Rising. I hope that game is good and all that stuff. They told us that Baccarat is coming out November 3rd. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. The response to that one didn't sit exactly very well with everybody. They didn't exactly were excited for that game or anything like that. We learned that Tropic 6 will be arriving on the Nintendo Switch on November 6th, although some people are a little iffy about the visuals on the game and all that stuff. We've learned that, quote, the card-based Griftland Switch Edition will have a summer 2021 release date, though. The big one for me, along with the Bravely Default, is that No More Heroes 3, we saw some gameplay footage. It's still coming out 2021. But the best part about this announcement is that No More Heroes 1 and 2 are now available to download for the Nintendo Switch. I'll try to get a review of those games soon. I love those games when those came out back during the Wii era. And it's very nice to see this game finally get released onto the Nintendo Switch. Hopefully with the larger install base that the Switch has, though, which is supposedly now somewhat, I think, surpassing almost or close to surpassing the Wii's install base, though. Hopefully this time around the game gets a better attention than it did during the Wii era. From what I understand, it didn't sold exactly well, despite the Wii having huge install base and all this stuff. We also learned about basically part-time UFO from the folks who did, I think, the Kirby, HAL Laboratories, that's out today on the Nintendo Switch. There's the demo for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I will talk about that in part 4 on that. But the one that I think is kind of controversial is basically the announcement of Hitman 3, which will be out 2021, and Control Ultimate Edition, which is out today. What makes this somewhat controversial is that this is based off the cloud version. In other words, though, you're going to have to stream the game off the Nintendo Switch, which, from what I understand, based on some of the comments, though, it's basically not everyone's happy about it, though, and I will say the response has been mixed at best. And I'm kind of torn on this one as well, in terms of the cloud version of Hitman 3 and Control and all that stuff. On one hand, I'm glad that they're bringing these games over to the Nintendo Switch. And hopefully it will reach out to a bigger audience. But the fact that it's the cloud version, that's not sitting well with everyone, especially when we're learning that apparently if you live in Australia, you won't be able to play, Control because of the internet infrastructure down there, though. And I think that's one of the big issues with cloud gaming, though. While I do believe cloud gaming has potential and it could work, there's still some hurdles it has to overcome, and one of those hurdles is having a solid internet connection. I think that's a problem for some folks out there, especially if you don't have a solid internet connection. So I'm very mixed on this, though. I will say for Control, though, they do have a trial version, so you could try it out and see if this works for you or not. They do have the option to have either a higher resolution or a performance mode and play it at 60 frames per second and all that stuff. That's all nice and dandy and all that, but being it's a cloud version, that might be an issue for some. Plus, after you're done with the trial version, you could go straight to the Nintendo eShop and basically buy the game, which, again, some people don't like that approach, which is similar to Stadia, which they offer, you subscribe to them, you have to buy the game, you get all this features and all that stuff, or you could just buy the game outright. To others who feel like the Xbox Game Pass approach is somewhat better and all that stuff. So I'm very mixed on the decision to do this cloud approach, and I'm wondering if other developers are going to use this as an excuse to figure they'll just bring this game over rather than try to optimize it as best as they can for the Nintendo Switch. It's possible Control may have not. It's possible that they tried to optimize it for the Switch, but it couldn't run well and all that stuff. So there's that possibility, and I could understand to some degree taking this approach, but I'm not sure it's going to sit well with everybody, though. It's going to be really interesting to see how well that game is going to sell on the Nintendo Switch. If it sells very well, despite being the cloud version, we could see other developers take this kind of approach that we're seeing with Control and Hitman 3. However, if they sell poorly, though, then I really can't see how other developers are going to take this approach and all that stuff. Not to mention there are rumors that the next one could be the remake of Resident Evil 3 and all that stuff. So overall, I would say this was a good Direct, though. Some of the games they announced, though, were pretty neat, though. Finally getting a release date of Bravely Default 2 is certainly nice. Immortal Phoenix Rising does show promise. I'm glad it's coming out December 3rd. Supposedly it will be out with the other versions, though. I'm still going to keep an eye on it. I still have concerns about it, but I'll still keep an eye on it indeed. The fact that they released a demo for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is nice, and the fact that No More Heroes 1 and 2 are out on the Nintendo Switch, and judging by the footage they showed for No More Heroes 3, still looks good. I'm still looking forward to that. I will say the controversial one is Hitman 3 and Control Ultimate Edition, because mostly it's based off the cloud version, and I have a feeling, I wonder how well that's going to sit with a lot of Switch owners. I'm not sure everyone's going to jump aboard on it, though, but we'll see how well it does on the Nintendo Switch and see if it sells well enough to bring more of these games over to the Switch via the cloud, or whether the cloud approach is, or if it does poorly and perhaps maybe the cloud approach isn't exactly the best approach at all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 4. And this one, I want to give my thoughts on the demo of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity that Nintendo just released for us to download. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our 4th and final part of our My 2 Cents video for this week. And for this one, I want to give my thoughts on the demo version of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, though. Now, this game was kind of a bit of a surprise for people that people saw when Nintendo unexpectedly announced this. This was basically a Hyrule Warriors game, but somewhat different, as this one actually was a prequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, set 100 years before the events of that game. And many people are seeing that we're getting that, we have Breath of the Wild, and then we have Breath of the Wild 2, so we're getting like a full like Zelda trilogy or Breath of the Wild trilogy out of this, though. And given the fact that I did enjoy Hyrule Warriors, especially the Definitive Edition, though, I always feel like the Nintendo-themed Warrior games are always good, because I feel as though they put more effort into that one than, say, the other Warriors games. I wanted to give this one a try as much as I enjoyed the Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors, though. And I will say, based on my time with the demo, at least based on some of the levels, at least 2 that I've done, and based on some of the stuff, though, I honestly say I'm definitely pleased with what I am seeing, even though there may be some areas that they may have to address and all. Obviously, from a story standpoint, though, the game takes place 100 years excuse me, before the events of Breath of the Wild. So you see what the world of Hyrule looks like before, everything, lied in ruins and all that stuff. And from a gameplay perspective, obviously, the game basically plays very similar to basically the Hyrule Warriors and all, but there are a couple of caveats and some different things. One of the things that I noticed is that during gameplay, though, every time you defeat enemies or unlock treasure chests and all, you'll get items, and you need these items because some of them basically do some of the side quests in the games where, like, say if you want to cook food, you got to have these certain items, therefore you can use that to maybe improve some of your stats and all that stuff. Others may improve, giving you another piece of heart or like a full heart to basically, improve your life or improve like different moves and all that stuff. As far as the characters go, though, I would say Link pretty much moves basically kind of similar to how Link moved in Hyrule Warriors, to be exact though. So that's nothing new. Impa, which is basically the younger version of Impa, 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild. Her moves are kind of similar, somewhat similar to basically, I think Sheikah from the Hyrule Warriors. For those who are not familiar, that was Princess Zelda in disguise during the events of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64, released back in 1998, and all that stuff. And her moves are kind of similar to hers with, like a ninja style approach. There are some differences and all that stuff, but for the most part, her moves are very similar to how Sheikah from Hyrule Warriors is, if I'm saying the name correctly. Princess Zelda took a little while for me to get used to her moves, because unlike the Princess Zelda from Hyrule Warriors, her moves requires using the Sheikah Stone and using, certain Sheikah powers and the certain powers within it, though. Like when you use it to create like a block or like a bomb or anything like that. So it took a little while to understand how her moves work, but they followed very close. But I still was able to basically accomplish what I need to accomplish with her, though. It just took a little while to get used to her powers, though. But speaking of which, basically throughout the gameplay, though, most of your characters outside of Princess Zelda will have access to the different powers the Sheikah Stone has. You'll have the ability to basically throw bombs, set up blocks, and all that stuff, which comes up handy because there are certain enemies in the game that using certain Sheikah powers or certain powers from the Sheikah Stone could basically that could be like the enemy's weakness. For example, some of the enemies might be weak against the bomb, so you want to use that, to be exact. Other times you can use areas such as like, shoot like bows and arrows, and basically, they could be weak against that. Or if you see like a exploding barrel, you could shoot that and will take out a lot of enemies, not to mention burn some of the grass. Some of the visual details look really good since it's based closely to Breath of the Wild and all that stuff. And it's, from a gameplay perspective, it is still a Warriors game, nevertheless, though, but it's still, I could feel, it's a cut above that and all that stuff. So it's definitely, from a gameplay perspective, despite being a Warriors game, it's still fun and enjoyable to be at all. There are a couple of minor hiccups that I have based on my time with the demo. Some of them, one I think is not a big one, but there is one that I would say is probably the biggest one, to be exact. The first one I want to point out is that anytime you defeat an enemy and all that stuff, you don't automatically, not all the enemies, like especially like the big ones, though, you don't exactly pick up like any item. You don't automatically pick up the items like you did in Fire Emblem Warriors. Here, you basically, you still have to run up and grab them. Again, minor con, but nothing huge or anything like that. The other one I do want to point out is that when you're not controlling any of the other characters, you can point them into another direction and send them to another place, though, which is all fine and dandy, though, but it's nowhere nearly as good as, say, what Fire Emblem Warriors did, where if you send them to that direction, your character that you're not controlling into another direction, they'll attack the enemies and all that stuff. Not to mention, since Fire Emblem was a strategy game, you had, the whole weapon wheel, which I believe it was sword beats axe, axe beats spear, spear beats sword, and all. Another thing I saw is that while the game looks nice and runs alright at 30 frames per second, though, I really wish that they had a graphical option for the game, like they did with Fire Emblem Warrior. That game allowed you to play it either have a higher resolution or run it at 30 frames per second, or play it at a lower resolution like 720p, but have the game run at 60 frames per second. I think it would have been nice if that option was available, though. I don't know if that will be in the final version or a future update, but unfortunately it would have been nice on that if they had that feature, though. And last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about the frame rate now. Now, there have been some complaints about the frame rate, at least in the demo version of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Some people have complained about it, that it's bad. Others people think it looks awful based on the videos and based on some of the previews some people have had with the demo. I would say, based on my time with the demo of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I would say the frame rate isn't as bad as some people make it out to be. Again, I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak based on my experience with it, but I will say the frame rate is not as bad. For the most part, the game runs at a good 30 frames per second. Nothing that impacted the gameplay or any way. I was still able to accomplish what I need to do in the game. My inputs were on, and my inputs were pretty much spot on, so I didn't really run into any problems with the frame rate to the point that made the game unplayable. Where I saw the frame rate sort of took a hit the most was mostly when you had a situation where, like, if you create like an explosion, that's where I saw the frame rate kind of dip a little bit in that kind of situation. But for the most part, I didn't really run into any major issues with the frame rate to the point that it made the game unplayable. Again, I can't speak for everyone, but that is based on my time with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Overall, I would say I'm very pleased with what I saw in the demo so far. I'm liking the game, to be exact. Yes, it is a Moozle game. It is a Warriors game. I'm fully aware that those type of games are not going to appeal to everybody, though. So if you never liked any of the Moozle or Warriors games, I can't see how this one's going to appeal to anybody, to you and all. But I will say I like what they're doing with it, though. It feels as though they're really pushing this to make this a cut above other Warrior style game, and I like how this one is connected to Breath of the Wild, to be exact. Yes, there are some minor hiccups that I have with it, though. Basically, I do wish they had a graphical option, and I will say, while the frame rate, based on my time with it, ran well, though there were some occasions, depending on if there's a lot on the screen or if there's like a big explosion, I did see some cases where the frame rate kind of dipped a little bit, but nothing that made the game unplayable. But I will say my experience with the game so far has been good, and I'm definitely looking forward to when this game comes out. One last thing, though, if I'm assuming this is correct, though, if you beat the demo or if you still have the demo game, don't delete it, though, because if you decide to pick up the the retail version and all, whether it's through the Nintendo eShop or if you buy it physically, though, excuse me, any progress you made in the demo, you could carry over to the main game, which is certainly good. So keep that in mind should you decide to pick up Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the comment Phil Spencer made in regards of bringing more single-player games to the Xbox Series S and X, to bringing more E-rated games to that system as well? Do you think he's spot on about that? Do you think he's right about it? Would you like to see more single-player games on, Xbox Series S and S or, the Game Pass? Do you think they should, their first-party development studios, do you think they should develop more E-rated games for the Xbox, though? What are your thoughts about the delay of Cyberpunk 2077? Are you surprised by this delay? Are you not surprised by this? Do you think CD Projekt Red went way over their heads? Do you think they would have been better if they just developed for the PS5, Xbox Series S and X, Stadia, PC, rather than try to bring it over to the PS4 or Xbox One? Do you think the death threats against them are way out of line and sort of like deplorable and downright unacceptable? What are your thoughts about the Nintendo Direct? Did you like what they showed off at the Nintendo Direct? Were you pleased with what they showed off? Were you not pleased? Are you happy you have hopefully a confirmed release date for Bravely Default 2 or Immortal Phoenix Rising? Are you happy that they released the demo for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity? Are you glad that No More Heroes 1 and 2 are now available to download off the eShop? And are you looking forward to No More Heroes 3? And are you happy that Cloud and Hitman 3 are coming to the Switch despite it being Control and Hitman 3 coming to the Nintendo Switch despite being the Cloud version? Are you bothered that this is the Cloud version, or are you not bothered this at all? Do you think it's sort of a controversial decision for some of these studios to make, to take that kind of approach? And finally, what are your thoughts about the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, the demo version? Have you downloaded the demo yet? Have you played the demo? Have you enjoyed the demo so far? Do you think the frame rate is as big of an issue as people are making it sound like it is? Or do you think some people are, excuse me, blowing it way out of proportion? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Excuse me. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. Excuse me. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day, and of course, happy Halloween. Bye!